All right. We are we are back. We are back. We are back. It's Monday. It is Monday the 14th. So welcome to October. I think the last time we had a live stream was the end of September. It has been hurricane season. It's been back to back. 14 rounds. Yeah, it's been rough. I think a lot of people that we know and love from where we lived in Tampa have been struggling with this last one, and we got hit really hard with the with Helene. But here we are, back to being consistent with the live streams. And then, speaking of being consistent, we're gonna go ahead and talk about our top sponsors. Thank you to all of our top sponsors. Thank you to Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, for helping us do the work that we do and believing in what it is. To all of our viewers and visitors, welcome to the HEF podcast. HEF is the Home Education Foundation, and we believe that parents have the duty and responsibility, and therefore the right to raise their own children the way that they see fit and to educate them the way that they see fit without the interference of outside institutions. And we lobby to protect those rights and to kind of push back and fight for those freedoms so that parents can make the choices that they see that they need to make for their own children. So without further ado or delay, let's see if I can grab the right screen here. That one. Yeah. Wait. Let me, hold on. Your mic's not on. Hang on, start over. All right, now your mic is on. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out to our governor, who has done a fantastic job of dealing with all of the issues following a hurricane. When you look at what's happening in North Carolina, I mean, he already had crews from California coming here to help fix the electrical grid and all that stuff for Floridians. So I'm just so thankful we have a governor that cares about the people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a little concerning, though, how our country has managed to turn weather into politics as well. It just seems like this is the year, these election years are those years where, like, literally everything gets turned into a political issue, even the weather.
And even in red states.
Yeah. So, there's so much to catch up on, and so much to talk about. I think the last time that we chatted, one of the last times that we chatted, I was in Gainesville for the FHSAA
board meeting
that was there, and I got my PLAC membership card here now. Yay! Where I can get into the state series as a pass, as a thank you for being on that board. So I look forward to serving on that and kind of hearing what that's all about and representing homeschoolers across the state at the FHSAA meetings. So we'll see.
It's all about protecting our rights and making sure that we get equal treatment.
Yeah. Yes. And it's something, it was interesting as I was walking around and talking to people there, that there were so many people who remember you and know you and are thankful for the work that you do. I think that the attitude that I got was more thank you for the light that you shined on something that we had overlooked in past years. And that seems to be the sentiment, at least, that I met while I was there. No one really seemed to be antagonistic. I will say, though, that those coaches and the people involved are classic kind of coach people, where they're territorial and they'll protect what's theirs. They will argue and fight. And man, it was interesting, some of the conversations they were debating over some of the rule changes for boys baseball and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and stuff like that. And yeah, it can get heated. So it was interesting, but
well, I just say since about 1997, the whole attitude of the FHSAA has changed, and actually, I've helped lobby on a couple of issues, not for pay, but just because it was the right thing to do to protect certain things that the legislators did not understand.
Right.
And I would speak up, and it was 2 years ago. I ended up, maybe 3. I lose track of time. It all runs together.
It's
But
all
there
right.
was a pretty bad amendment that was coming to put them under the State Board of Education.
Mm.
And, just on my own, I got up and spoke against it because I understood how they operated and how mercy they have a full plate trying
Yeah, they do.
to make all of
Yeah,
the
they do.
rules equal for all of the kids. And
Yeah, they
I
do.
can't imagine that the State Board of Education could dig down and handle all of that stuff.
It would get very complicated for sure.
They would become the FHSAA board, not the Board of Education, because you just
Mm-hmm.
can't. It's a lot. I mean, they have that
It's a
rule
lot.
book that's, they debate and they make amendments to
Mm-hmm.
it when it seems necessary. But
Mm-hmm.
the FHSA puts on the state series, and
Mm-hmm.
they're basically a private nonprofit corporation. We don't want the
Yeah.
state to overtake them.
Right. Right.
And so, it's been a friendly relationship over the years, and
Yeah.
not at first. Not at
Mm-hmm.
first.
Yeah. And they're up against when stuff that you don't think about like all the time. They're up against some odd conversations about like equality. I think one of the issues that they had with one of the changes to boys baseball was whether or not it was going to violate Title IX. Because if they're doing this change, like say increasing the number of games in the season that they can play up to a maximum of 28 was one of the things that we're talking about. Well, if they don't offer the same thing to girls, then are they violating Title IX? And it's like, well, the girls didn't ask for that. The boys did ask for that. So then do they have to wait until the girls ask for that to even decide if the boys get that? And these are some of the debates that are going back and forth. And I thought it's actually pretty simple. There's no such thing as girls baseball. If they want baseball, they can start a baseball team. They have softball, and there's no boys softball. And if they want one, like the companies have softball teams and they play softball and it's co-ed. But if they want one, they get one. But these are two different sports. I mean, technically, I know we think of softball as like for girls and baseball as for boys, but I think they're like apples and oranges. They're not exactly the same thing. So I thought it was a moot point, but I would probably be out argued in a court over that
Well, it's a
distinction.
balance. It doesn't have to be the same sport, but they have to have the
Hmm.
same opportunities for girls. So
Sure.
it could be in baseball or softball or whatever. But
Right. Yep.
and then they have to realize they also are, most of them, educators or involved in the education system. So, the high school athletics shouldn't be so many of them that the kids can't get their work done for academics. And so, there's a balance to be achieved. You have a few people that all they live is sports, but
Hmm.
that's one of the challenges that this board faces. And fortunately, now they have a way, because we changed their whole governance structure back in 1997 and put it in statute.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, maybe that was in 96. And then,
Okay.
no, in 96, what we did is we put them in statute and made them allow homeschoolers to participate, because they had a bylaw that said no homeschooler can participate at our public or private school members' schools.
Yeah.
So we changed that in statute, much to their chagrin now. I wish they had been a little bit more receptive to just opening up sports. But,
Hmm.
it is what it is. And then the next year, we came back as the Public Liaison Committee, which is what you
Hmm.
now are sitting on,
Right.
and completely restructured the organization so that principals and superintendents and every aspect of the population, including the Plaque Committee, which is there for the public. It's called the Public Liaison. What's that other word? Public Liaison something committee. I can't remember what the A stands for. Advisory committee.
Advisory, yeah.
So we're the committee that the public can come to and make a
Mhm.
complaint or a suggestion, and then we have the right under the governance to
Right.
bring that to the board for their consideration as a bylaw change. So,
Yeah. So it can be impactful.
which is a good segue into the amendments on the Constitution.
True. So if you have been following any of your favorite YouTubers or podcasters other than us, or things like that, you've probably seen some of them talk about this. And if not, I think it's important. If you're in Florida, you've probably seen commercials, like 100%. I have seen nonstop commercials on YouTube. Anytime they're like increasing in everywhere, trying to cram a specific ideology or way to vote down your throat. And so I think that it's important people get information that they have access to so they can actually understand it. Crystal and I got the sample ballot. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, a few days ago.
Yeah, and we were just kind of looking at it and how it was worded, and we were very concerned because we thought, oh, if you just read the first sentence, you probably already make up your mind. But then if you keep reading, you start to go scratch your head and go, wait a minute, maybe I don't want this. I don't know. Like, and I think it's important to read them all, read them carefully, and consult with some sources that are transparent about what means what. And I think one of those sources, if I may say so, is the James Madison Institute. On their website, jamesmadison.org, they have a 2024 Florida Amendment Guide, and it's pretty informative. They're very much in tune with Florida's history, how the amendments are proposed and written, and giving you transparent information on who recommends them. So there are citizen-initiated amendments, and there are legislative-referred amendments, and you can find a lot of that information there to kind of see their guide and breakdown of it, so that you can kind of understand a little bit more about them and get informed. So I think it's a good resource and a good tool, and I can drop a link to that actually in the chat real quick since we're discussing it, so that people can have a fast resource for that. But was there anything that you wanted to add to that? I don't want to tell people how to vote.
No, we're not trying to. I just know of a few sources. Somebody may have a better source or an additional source, so you can compare what people are saying, not from commercials, but from the actual wording in the Constitution.
Yes, please don't base it on commercials.
Yes.
Yeah, the Florida Family Policy Council has always put out a voter guide, and they usually do a survey of the candidates based on questions that they ask, and then they compile those questions and basically tell you from their viewpoint who they're going to support or who they recommend. It's a nonprofit, so they're pretty careful about how they.
Do you want me to put their link up too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll drop that one in as well.
If somebody comes up with another link, they can send it over to us. We can maybe post it during this.
Yeah, sure. So on either of these, the videos stay up and people can comment below. So if you want to comment below one of these with a resource or a guide that you find useful, by all means, feel free to drop that link in the comments here so that others can benefit from some of the research that you've done. And I think as a community, the home education community, we help each other out sharing those resources. I think we'll get the information. And by all means, that makes this a resource video that you can share with people who may not have the information, whether they're homeschoolers or not. And, everybody needs to get the full information. I think it's very important.
Just a comment on the commercial thing. If you watch YouTube or TV or anywhere that has ads, you will quickly notice that right now you'll get back-to-back commercials saying the exact opposite things. So that's why I said, please don't just base it on commercials, because depending on which commercial you see, you might only be getting part of the information. So yeah, that's why these resources should have a more complete view
Mm-hmm.
of what these amendments actually include, so you can read for yourself and understand.
It's interesting that you say that too, because when we were walking in the campaign over the weekend, we stopped into the gas station. So when you're walking a campaign, there are no potties, and if you have 4 children with you, that becomes very important. So just that's new to me, and so we found a gas station and kind of deviated from our route and went. And as I was just kind of waiting for them to come out, I was talking to the guy at the register, and I was like, are you planning to vote? And he was like, no, I try to stay clear of politics. And I thought, well, it's a little sad, because that is where all the decisions about how you get to live your life are made. And he
Absolutely.
was and he was like, oh, he's like, you're right. I was like, yeah, man, I would encourage you to vote. Dig into it, and let your voice be heard at the least. And he was like, okay. It's something that's important. So if you're not familiar with the information, post links to places. If anybody who is familiar with information posts links to places, this would be a great place to store some of those links and interact with the community on this thread. So I think that'd be great, and encourage people, at least to have their voice be heard. It really sucks to feel like you're tossed to and fro, by the decisions of others without a voice at all. Um, so
It's amazing to me how many people are registered to vote and don't vote.
yeah,
A good portion of people. And somehow people have gotten the idea that politics is bad. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
right. Yep.
But it's like you said, it's what governs your life. You live under
Yeah.
the Constitution and you live under the laws of the land.
Right.
Most of the people on this podcast know this, but let me just say the Constitution is a document that governs how the government, either in your state or in the nation, is going to be operated on. So
Mm-hmm.
while you might not be interested in constitutional amendments because they're just, too detailed, I can't read them, well, you can find the Florida Constitution on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our people are pretty intelligent. So take the language of the proposed constitutional amendment, compare it to and how it would fit into what's already there, because the Constitution was not designed to bypass the legislature. And many of the citizen proposed amendments, and that's the one good thing about the James Madison Institute guide, 4 of the amendments are proposed by the legislature. Typically, those are changes to the way things are done in government. About this, one of them is the bipartisan amendment for the school board. Okay, so the school boards are laid out in the Constitution. This is a change to how it's going to be in the future, and so that is a governing amendment to our state constitution. There are 2 on there: the abortion one and the cannabis. What is
3 and 4.
Yeah, 3 and 4.
4 is the abortion one, and 3 is the cannabis one.
Yeah. Okay, so those are issues that these people who are trying to make a point are circumventing, going through the legislative process where the people have the choice. It takes over $1 million, and we've seen this in the past. Takes over $1 million to get one of those citizen initiatives on the ballot, and they have to go through a lot of hoops to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So usually it's big money behind it. Let me give you an example from years past. And we had an amendment on our ballot to amend our Constitution that makes it illegal to crate pregnant pigs. That has nothing to do with the way our state is governed. But people from Iowa knew that our Constitution was easy to amend, so they came to Florida, put the money out, and got that on the ballot. Typically, people vote yes on all constitutional amendments. It's amazing. They don't even read them. They just vote yes. Like, well,
Wow.
if it's on the ballot, it must be good. I'll vote in favor of it. So they don't take the time. They feel like they don't have the knowledge to analyze them, and so they vote yes. Well, what has a pregnant pig got to do? We don't even raise pigs in Florida. I think there was one pig farmer in the Panhandle that would have been affected. But then they could go back to Iowa and say, well, Florida has it in their constitution, and then they think they can win in Iowa. So it affected all the people in Florida. It didn't affect but one farmer. But the point is, that is not the place to put that. That should have been passed by the legislature, from the farmers who thought that was an issue, or the animal rights people that thought it was an issue. And then they come to the legislature, they hear from the people, the legislators decide whether that's a good law or not. But it's easier to change a law than it is to change the Constitution. So keep in mind, when you're voting for constitutional amendments, they need to deal with how Florida is governed. Not the specific issues that somebody is upset about that goes to, raise the money. And to give you another example, the legislature could not afford to fund VPK. There were a number of people that did not want the state to pay for voluntary pre-kindergarten. Actually, what they wanted was universal kindergarten, where everybody would have to send their children to 4-year-old kindergarten, the movers and shakers. So since they couldn't get the legislature to pass it because they couldn't afford to fund it, they got it in the Constitution. So they bypassed the legislature who had to fund it. So they've never fully funded voluntary pre-kindergarten. And I stood up in a committee and said, this is the worst law ever been passed in the state of Florida, because it was eminent domain on all the private kindergarten providers in the state. So the state took them over. They regulated who could teach, what their credentials were, how much they could charge, what kind of curriculum they were going to have. And now they've even amended it so that they have government evaluators sent into private kindergarten providers to evaluate the progress of the child and the interaction with the teacher. So I could see this long range, how this was going to work, but it was a constitutional amendment. So when it passed and parents vote, I want the government to pay for my 4-year-old's daycare. Check.
Yeah. Dangling that dollar, man.
Absolutely. So think about it long range. Is this something you really want in the Constitution? Or would you have rather waited, like we have the PEP scholarship and the before that, the UA scholarship, and we were able to design the program so that it was in the best interest of the child. Now, those programs can be changed. They can, if they can't fund them, they can eliminate the program. But VPK has to be provided, and the legislature then had to fund it. So that's, how some of those amendments have come about. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, be careful, because I'm hearing things that, is the government responsible for paying? Is the state government responsible for paying for somebody's abortion? Is that our, as citizen, responsibility? What if we don't believe in that? What if we think like Colorado, who has passed the cannabis, that there are a lot of people that aren't working because they're.
Well, and like you said, it takes a lot of money to get this put forward. So who's funding? And who's going to profit from these changes? That's a really important thing. I have a friend who just votes no on all amendments. He's like, I don't care what the amendments are. I just vote no on all amendments. Don't change the Constitution. If you want to add a law or do this here, go through other routes, but leave the Constitution alone.
Well,
That's
my
kind of
husband
his.
was an attorney, and that was his philosophy. Just vote no.
Yeah, well, this friend is an attorney too, so that seems to check. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Because
Well,
they know
Clive.
how it's going to affect down the road. I mean,
Yeah, I think that the common person doesn't understand a lot about the process or how the interplay works or what the catches in those situations are. Clive is with us today. Clive says he's got a couple of comments here. I think we'll start with his most recent because it's what we've been talking about. But he says it's true about getting involved in politics and voting. He says true, but today politicians are toxic. I mean that's partially. I think there's some merit to that, but I also think we're a bit sensitive. People say things we don't like to hear, and we just call them toxic sometimes. Because that's a word that word wasn't even popular before, recent years.
I can tell you, though, there are many people in the legislature that I know, and even in Congress, who are there because they want to make sure America remains free, and they're
Yes.
there to protect the Constitution.
Yes.
So a blanket statement, yes, there's a lot of negative stuff, and
Yeah.
but you have to look at policies. You have to look at what the overall lifestyle of some of these people are that are putting their life on the line. I mean, who wants to go serve in Washington and be gone from your family for 9 months out of the year? It's a sacrifice. And I am so grateful that some of these conservative, and when I mean conservative, they're there to protect the Constitution.
Yeah.
They may have other values I agree with, but their main thing is they're trying to protect America. I'm grateful, very grateful that they're willing to go serve. And no, they're not the ones you hear, interviewed on TV. They're working behind the scenes and trying to, do the work. And we know, Jason, from just working at the Capitol, how many people, whether they're Democrat or Republican.
That's right.
We saw some Democrats that their minds were changed because they heard what we had to say in a committee.
Yes.
And that their purpose is there to protect and help people. Maybe we don't go about it in the same way, but I think in the end we have the same goal. And that's the good thing about the legislature is people can debate. And shame on us if we elect people that are there for their own personal gain or whatever their personal motives are.
Or we're just playing teams. Yeah.
It's our responsibility to get to know them and to vote the people in that aren't toxic.
Well, the senator that we were walking with, I don't agree with him on everything that he thinks or talks about. And it was interesting because I thought, well, we agree on what's really important to me, though. And I thought that I don't really, the other candidate doesn't. So I was like, this is the one we're going to walk and try to promote because he's the one who, when it comes down to his choices, I don't think I agree with every one of them. And I'm not going to play for a team. I want to go with the person who I have the most in common with, and at least the things that I see as pivotal, we agree on. And especially, where we're at with parents and parents' rights and freedoms to make their own choices, that's key. That is a battlefront. That's a landing zone. It's an empowerment. I was listening to a debate that someone was having about what is a right, and they were going back and forth between what are rights. And one of the people said, your rights are what you have that you can enforce. If you can't enforce it, you don't have the right. You may think you have the right to eat or this food or that, but if it's on my land and you can't enforce that you have the right to eat, you don't have that right. And he made some interesting points, but it really just kind of codified in my mind that we have to fight for our rights. We have to protect them. We have to be here to represent, to show up, to show them that there are people who stand in the Capitol who care. And we'll make those personal sacrifices to be there and let it be known that it won't just silently, like a whisper, get voted on and passed, and no one actually cares. So it was not a big deal. We have to put some force behind it and show up. And so anyway,
Well, some of the legislators in Florida, a couple from Clive's district or the area he lives in, are homeschoolers. And, they've helped us in the legislature on many issues that we felt would be important to home education. I mean, there were a couple of Democrats on the committee that voted for the scholarship programs because the kids in their districts, which were mostly Democratic districts, have benefited greatly from the FESEO, going to a private school. And so they step away from the traditional policies of the Democratic Party and say, I'm going to do this because it's good for my district. Whatever else happens in the next election, we'll just take it and see whether my constituents agree or not, And so, getting involved in campaigns, there's so many people like they vote because my dad was a Democrat or a Republican, and I'm going to vote that way. But you need to vote policies. What are these people's policies and where do they stand? And you know what? That involves some research on our part.
It does.
We need to go
to
their website. We need to listen to them in local debates.
Yep.
We need to hear what they have to say. And I think on a national basis, too often we are one issue people. And they don't look at the overall thing that
or party people
are standing for and their backgrounds and what they have done. Because yes, they are going to be toxic if that's how they've been in the past, in their way they've conducted themselves. So let's don't elect the toxic ones. Let's look at what the person is saying based on policy. And you can take school choice, because that's important to us. We want parents to have a choice.
Yeah, huge.
So what are they saying about school choice? Are you opposed? Are they opposed to that? Well, that's a pretty big issue. And, so you need to look at the issues and where they stand on those things rather than just voting party. And the way our state is set up, and that it actually has to go before a judge, there has to be equal representation from Democrats and Republicans, and they draw the funniest districts, in order to capture those people, so that no matter where you live, if you happen to fall into one of those gerrymandered districts, to capture a primarily Democratic district or a Republican district, if you fall in a Democrat area, a Democrat most likely is going to win. So get out there, talk to the Democrats that are running, and find out where they stand on issues. It takes time, takes energy. But you and Crystal did that on Saturday, and it's kind of fun, actually.
It was. The kids actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the kids had fun. They were complaining that they were tired. But then they also were saying, this is kind of fun, though.
Yeah, afterwards they were like, they were like, this is a lot of walking. I'm
Even during it, they were like, ooh, can we knock on the next door? Yeah.
Yeah. I told them, if you knock on the door or push the doorbell, you have to be the one to talk. And then I would step back and kind of let them see what they said or how they introduced themselves and stuff like that.
Well, your 4-year-old can talk the ear off.
And this is just having done this for a weekend now. This is my pro tip to anybody who goes to walk. If you have children, take them with you, because people are way more likely to actually greet you pleasantly when they see cute children.
That's right.
Nobody likes to have someone randomly knocking on their door, but when they open the door to cute children, the reaction is, "Oh, hi," not "I don't have time."
Especially if your kids are polite.
And so then you at least get a 3-second window in
Yeah.
which to explain why you're there.
I don't know. Some of the older people that answered the doors were really chatting up the kids, and
Yeah, they love the
I had to be like, well, we've got more houses to get to. Thank you.
Of the 68 doors we knocked on, because that's how many we
Wow.
did.
Mhm.
They assigned us a neighborhood, and they had the houses we were supposed to go to. There were 68 of them, and of those, some people weren't home. But of the people that were home, only 2 people that I encountered were just immediate shutdowns. Like, didn't even want to talk to us because, and I think that's because the cute children.
I had one.
How can you just be like, no, go away
Mhm.
when there's cute children at your door? So, if you have kids, my recommendation is take them with you.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a learning experience for them, but it also makes it less intimidating for the people whose doors you're knocking on because
And it does matter.
Yeah.
Like we had one lady or person, I can't remember who it was. I'm trying to think. They said they weren't really going to vote. I think it was one that you knocked on because you told me when you got back in the car. They weren't really going to vote, but after we walked and talked with them,
Yeah.
they were like, you know what, we will.
I had
We
one
will. We'll
person
support your
who
candidate.
said, I really haven't done the research. I'm not decided.
Mhm.
But she asked, like, why are you campaigning for this person? And I gave a very brief explanation about the fact that we homeschool. This person is a proponent of school choice and educational
Mhm.
freedoms. And she was like, okay, well then I'll vote for him because I mean, I didn't have a plan and I wasn't going to vote, but okay, you came to my door, you explained it.
Yeah.
And again, I think having the cute kids there was.
And I walked up to a door, knocked on it, and the lady wouldn't open the door because she was afraid her cat would get out. But she was like, I'm 77 and I only have a few years left. It doesn't matter. And I was like, well, it matters to me.
You see all these children?
I was like, I have 4 children and I care about what, opportunities they have in schools. And this candidate, is about school choice. And she goes, oh, well, okay then. And I thought, that's progress. That's progress. A lot of people already had their minds made up. And that is what it is. You're not there to, twist people's arm or anything like that. But, there's a lot of people who don't vote.
Yeah, there really are.
There's a lot who don't.
Somebody, while we were walking the neighborhood, someone was walking the neighborhood canvassing for the opponent. So
Yeah.
I just want to throw that
He
out
didn't
there
have
that
kids.
if you're not out there getting involved, that doesn't mean that people on the other
That's
promoting
true too.
opposite policies to what you would want aren't out there
That's true
promoting and involved. So
too. Know the policies and get out there and
yeah.
make a difference.
And for us here, like one of the key issues are those individual educational freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
And so that swayed a few people
Absolutely.
for us to just be like, this person protects our right to homeschool. And
Yeah.
that's why we're out here today on a Saturday knocking on 68 doors. So
I think that's another important thing that you kind of made me think of. I don't always agree with all of my friends who are homeschoolers on the best ways things are done or how, the impact or how to do this or how to make this change. And we're an anomaly. I think that home education's on the rise across the nation, but I think that it's leapt from 1.8% or 1.6% to 4%, which is that's a big growth for home education, but there's 96% of the population that still is not. And yes, maybe it's on the rise and the popularity is growing, but it is nowhere near. We are nowhere near a giant swell. We are the anomaly. And don't underestimate the power of your voice, but others as well, because we are still such a small part of the overall makeup. We have to work to be heard. Yeah, and we have to put in the effort. We have to show up.
Add to that, like if we are choosing not to engage because we're just assuming someone else is going to protect those rights, 96% of the population may not care about our rights. So
and are unfamiliar with what we
or are just unfamiliar.
Or they be completely opposed to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true too.
So that's why I have not always been super engaged in politics. But when you realize
Yeah.
that no one else is going to protect that for you, like not
Hmm.
everyone has the same interests that you have. And if you're not using your voice, they are using theirs.
Hmm.
So there needs to be a voice coming from the homeschool community, the home education community. There
Absolutely.
needs to be a voice coming from us.
We have to work to be heard
Yeah.
because we are such a small part. And I think another segue into it, I think this is one of the key reasons why the Tell Your Story project matters so much. I was actually talking with the senator that we were walking with about this because we were talking about some of the key issues of PEP that are happening and with the importance of keeping PEP separate from home education and statute because that's important to us and why and how we created this Tell Your Story project so that people can show what home education for them looks like, whether they use a scholarship or not, and we can get a representative voice because the media and he understood when I talked about the media, he understood the game that they play about
Well, he's
telling
seeing it
one side of the
firsthand with his
narrative.
campaign. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We were even joking. We were like, this senator uses child labor to run his
Right.
campaigns.
There's
I was
all
like, they're
these-
gonna take one picture of our kids with him and be like, he uses child labor to run his campaigns. How dare he? And I'm like, come on, my word.
But
it's gonna be brutal.
It's not actually that far out of something plausible.
No, because we were watching
Based
one
on
the other
other
night
ads
and
we've seen.
he was reading something. It's a picture of him in the Senate reading something, but the way they gray screened it out and they were making it look like he was hanging his head in shame, like he knows he's doing the bad thing, but he's just looking down reading. And I was like, man, what a way to spin a picture of a guy reading. Of course they're going to spin this. Anywho, the Tell Your Story project is there to kind of give everyone who can access it, which we'll put these videos on YouTube, but give everyone who can access them a window to peek through to see what their freedoms could look like. And there's a lot of people in the wake of the hurricanes and, going back to school and the wake of COVID did this, like that are looking at other options because they're wanting to know what's out there. And this gives them a way to see what others are doing, to see that it's valid, and to one, protect it if they're legislators, and two, maybe partake in it if they're the curious type,
And just
So,
to be honest, we have not received very many. So if
No.
you're watching this and you're thinking, "Oh no," I'm sure plenty
get
of
that
them.
camera out.
We're actually talking to you.
Yes.
We're not talking to all the other people because we aren't getting a ton of them. So there tends to be at least, I know I do this a lot where I'll hear something and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm sure plenty of other people are doing that."
Mm-mm.
Please don't assume that. We
No.
want your story, like you specifically, whoever is listening to me right now. Please
Yes.
take the time if you can find it in your schedule. We only need a 60-second video.
That was powerful. I think we just end on that note. Oh no, my internet
For only
froze.
4% of the population. And it can be, sorry, were you?
Oh, I think I froze.
Oh,
Like
no,
the whole
you're
thing
fine.
froze.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
We're such a small percentage of the overall population, and I do think it's easy to lose sight of that because when you're running in the circles with a bunch of other homeschoolers, it seems like it's becoming mainstream, but it's really not.
Yeah.
And so if we want to represent our lifestyles well, we need to be putting our voices out there because the other people that are trying to represent what home education looks like are doing it from an outsider's perspective that isn't really accurate. So
Correct.
we need our community to actually submit
Yes.
so that we have voices from actual
Yes.
home educating families.
Yes. So if you have a child with a disability and used the scholarship and pulled them from public school classes or something like that, and you just have this heartwarming story of how much of an impact that's had for you, please just take 60 seconds and put it on video. You don't have to show yourself if you don't want to. You can just show B-roll or pictures, a
Pause a
slideshow
second.
of
Yeah,
pictures.
pause a second. Not everybody might know what B-roll means. But
Okay. B-roll is just video that plays silently in the background while you
yeah,
talk.
something that represents the mood of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you can find stock footage of whatever represents
Or
the mood of what
just
you're talking
pictures, a slideshow of
Yeah.
pictures of your kids. Something simple. Here they are doing Legos, and you know, they were told they'd never be able to do this. I think Sergey had such a powerful testimony
Right.
when his mother was told he'd never like talk
Or sit
and
up.
or sit up, and there he is like on sailboats teaching other people how to sail. And like it's
Yeah.
just it's heartwarming
It is.
to see.
I just
Mhm.
wanted to throw out there because I have some friends who are uncomfortable sharing videos of their kids
Mhm.
online. So
Yep,
if you're one of those where you don't want yourself or your kids to actually be
we get it.
seen, you can even get creative with angles of pictures. Take pictures of their hands playing with the Legos or doing the
That's
worksheet.
a good idea, actually. Yeah,
You don't have to show faces
that's true.
if you
Actually,
feel more comfortable doing it a different way.
that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. You made such a compelling argument for this. I think this is where we end today. We're just gonna end with that. Thank you for speaking up. You're not usually that forceful in your communication. You're so.
I had my
Brenda
coffee
always
today.
says you're. That's what it is. A
Well,
good coffee. We're
I
buying
need
more of
to
that.
share one story
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
before we end.
All right.
Speaking of speaking up and making a difference, taking your children door to door, I made
Mhm.
an appeal to a homeschool group back in the 90s as I was trying to get people involved. And one 13-year-old and her mother were at the meeting. Well, she caught the vision.
Oh
That
yeah.
13-year-old girl with her mother walked, I think it was something like 15 districts, I don't remember the number, for the candidate that really, he entered the race late. He had equal qualifications basically with the other, it was in the primary
Mm-hmm.
with the other candidate that was running. The other one had raised a lot more money. But this girl went door to door every afternoon in those districts and handing out brochure and talking to people. And that candidate won every one of those precincts that child walked. That voice made a difference.
It sure did.
It turns out that his wife later replaced him when he was appointed a judge. They had homeschooled, and she became very powerful in the legislature
Hmm.
and was able to do a lot of things to help homeschoolers.
Very cool.
So that's
Yeah,
how
one
one
voice.
voice can make a difference.
We are here. We are here. We are here. It's like the Horton Heroes of Who moment. That's really cool. That's very cool. Well, then we'll end on that. And thank you. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for being with us. It is Monday. We hope that everybody is recovering from the storms. We know that you're out there. If you need help or something and there are local homeschoolers near you, like you can comment below, or if you have help to give and you're local to somebody, post a comment below the video and let them know where, what county you're in. And if people need help, they can chime in. And just, I'd love to see our community go back and forth if there's a way to facilitate any kind of help that's needed. I did also see that there are some public schools that are doing cleanup days so that those kids can get back to schools. I think it'd be cool if any of the homeschoolers in those areas wanted to volunteer their time and go do that, because that would shock them. But it might also give other people a chance to get some exposure to homeschooling they don't usually get, and see the freedoms they could they could be taking advantage of and enjoying as well. We'll go back and say thank you again to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, and Fisher Precious Metals. We thank you so much for your support, and we appreciate what you do to help keep us going. And we thank you especially to all of those families who are out there. We regularly see the $5 and $10 a month, and sometimes even $50 a month donation tiers that you sign up for. And personally, I love seeing those because I know that that's a family and a person who's there with us, and it really helps not only financially support what we do, but it helps provide that motivation to know that you're hand in hand with us, and we appreciate that. Well, without anything else, we're going to let you get back to your Monday, and we thank you very much for being with us and all the support that you do.